This shortly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. So, Susan, you have started the meeting today. We're going to talk about economic justice. What is economic justice? Specifically, we are going to talk about the embodiment of economic justice from the mind to flesh. How do you flesh in the economic justice itself? See that from an idea to a thing that is physical, from heaven to earth, from the new heaven into the new earth. And that's the whole idea, from the spirit to the flesh. What we've been talking, what we talked about 2 weeks ago, the idea, the philosophy itself of economic justice, how to establish it. But now we say, how do you bring it on earth? How do you make that idea to land on earth? See, that is, completely consistent with Revelation chapter 21. And then I saw a new heaven and the new earth. So this new earth is, how do you bring economic justice here on earth? So it becomes embodied. And the embodiment of economic justice is in the token itself. See, the economic justice token. Now, to tell us about economic justice token is none other than Raz Simon Kimathi-Sappleton, attorney at law, practice lawyer who is practicing in the United Kingdom. And so I will not give too much introduction because Kimathi is going to tell us all about himself. And I want to welcome Kimathi to tell us about the embodiment of economic justice in the economic justice token itself. So in his presentation, he's going to tell us what it is, the economic justice token. Why is it important for us to understand it? And then he will tell us how it works in his presentation. Then the second, we're going to ask him, dig deeper into the whole conversation by asking very detailed questions so that we can dissect that body. Remember I said embodiment, we need to dissect that body. We come as anatomists with our nice scalpels, we dissect the entire structure so we can understand the anatomic structure of the economic justice itself, which is embodied in the token. Okay, without further ado, welcome Simon Kimathi. So you tell us about economic justice token.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Macharia. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everybody, wherever you are located on the earth. As Dr. Macharia has rightfully said, my name is Simon Kimathi. I am an immigration lawyer in the UK, and I am the CEO of GSM Legals. We are an immigration law firm, and we are practicing in the UK. However, immigration is a global arena. So we're not just based in the UK, we can do cross borders as well. However, immigration and human rights are quite interlinked. And this is an area of law which I'm very passionate about. And I've always asked the question, especially in regards to especially reparations for slavery. And through my research over many, many years, how can those who have been victims of unjustified acts get reparations or equality? Through talking with Dr. Macharia, we have realized that to get equity nowadays in this world is through the economic justice token. And I believe this is the new revolution and the new way forward to try and get equity. So without further ado, let me proceed with my presentation. It will be the one we spoke about recently, just a recap, but we need to understand equity and equality. Then we should go into the Q&As later on. I shall share my screen. Bear with me a moment. If you can let me know once you can see my screen, that would be great. So can everyone see my screen?
Susan, can you see?
All exception to yourself, Dr.
She's not
With
saying
due
that.
respect. Okay, so understanding economic justice. So again, as Dr. Mashari had rightfully said, economic justice refers to the idea that economy will be more successful if it is fairer. It includes the moral principles which guide us in designing an economic institutions. So how do we create a more fairer society? This can also relate to anything to do with legal matters, health matters. These are the things which we need to really address. Without equity, there can really be no equality. So equity is what we're trying to obtain here. And this is the start of my presentation. This is economic justice. It relates to the fair distribution of economic resources, opportunities, and legal rights. This also means that everyone has the means to thrive or background. And it's not charity or aid, which many institutions or governments wish to give, especially those so-called, what they like to label third world countries, or we are giving aid, we're giving charity. We no longer really need aid. We need equity. So what is required is systemic equity. That's how we can get real justice. So there are 4 key components in relation to economic justice. So equity means the fair distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privileges. Equity means recognizing that not everyone starts from the same place and adjusting imbalances to create fair outcomes. We have to establish that equity is different to equality. Equality, which treats everyone the same regardless of their starting point. Equity takes into account historic and systemic disadvantages and aims to correct them, so that all individuals can succeed based on their potential, not their circumstances. And this is again what I spoke about, underprivileged communities who are discriminated against, or those who have been have faced injustices through systemic oppression. Again, many of the African Americans, the Caribbeans, or even Asians, or anybody around the world who basically has endured discrimination and oppression. 2, the second, equal opportunity, resources like education, healthcare, and jobs. If we don't have equal access to the bare necessities in life that help can govern and function our well-being, already we're going to be in a backward spiral. So everyone should have access, regardless of their background or social economic status, to benefit from essential services and economic resources. This is very important. As I mentioned before, quality education. I used to live in Jamaica between 2006 to 2010. At that time, my children were very fortunate to go to a prep school. We paid for their education. However, I realized that the basic education in Jamaica was very poor. So already there's a disadvantage for it. Healthcare, again, in some countries, some remote places, healthcare is very poor, very dire. And I'm very sure Dr. Mashari has witnessed this firsthand. Housing. Everyone should be able to afford quality housing. This is not the case. Employment and financial services. So without genuine access, people are locked out of opportunities and upward mobility. making it to cycles of poverty and inequality. So the third component is very important: participation. Everyone has a voice in economic decision making. What do we mean by participation? This means that individuals and communities are empowered to influence the decisions that affect their economic lives. This can involve workplace decisions, public policies, budgeting processes, and development within the communities. So when we're looking at true economic justice, this requires that even marginalized groups are not only included, but also heard and respected in these processes. So what we have here now is when more people are involved in shaping the economy, it leads to a more and sustainable outcomes. And the fourth key component, human dignity. And this is in relation to economic systems should respect and uplift the inherent worth of all people. And I will talk about this in a bit later on in my presentation. And this goes back to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 1, talks about everyone is respected. However, which I will talk about later on, this is not the case, again, which is a written document. However, it's not enforceable. How it even breaches this document. But this fourth key component is about human dignity. Human dignity is economic justice. That means recognizing that every person deserves to live and work in conditions that affirm their value and humanity. It involves fair wages. Again, this is a very debatable. What is fair? Is a teacher that could be paid in Brazil? Is it would their wages be the same in England? So again, what is fair? Safe working environments. We are very sure, we can all agree that many individuals on this earth are working in some horrendous conditions just to feed their family. Again, contrary to safe working conditions, right? Freedom from exploitation. Again, there's a thing called modern day slavery. It's real. Slavery never stopped from being in existence. It's very much real today. Even in the UK, individuals are working maybe 80 hours a week. Some individuals are working even without the right documentation in institutions in the UK. That is exploitation. Human trafficking is real. And it's very relevant in the UK and America and across the globe. So these things are in operation. How can we eradicate this? This is what the economic justice token will hopefully achieve. And moving on from freedom from exploitation and the opportunity to lead a fulfilled. I think that's should be a basic fundamental human right. I think we can all agree. And we also need to make sure that economic policies and institutions should not treat people as a mere labor or customer or consumers, but as full human beings with rights, needs, and aspirations. So this is what the economic justice token will try to create. Next slide. So next slide, the problem economic justice solves. So moving on now, millions lack access to legal services. And not even just legal services. Millions lack access to just basic healthcare. And this is a serious problem throughout the world. I have a quote where I say, is our true wealth. If individuals can't even maintain that or get to see a doctor or nurse or medical care, that's going to be a serious problem. So the economic justice token will help eradicate that, will help solve this problem. wealth concentrates power, poverty strips rights, and it's all over the world. People in poverty, or poor people, or people who are not financially affluent, their voices aren't heard, and it's unfortunate, but it's very true. And legal systems can often benefit the privileged. Again, this is true. So, equality and equity. So, the difference between equity and equality can be drawn clearly on the following grounds: justice and fairness in the manner of treating individuals are called equity. Equality is what we call the state where everyone is at the same level. Equity is a process while equality is the outcome. Equity is to be fulfilled to achieve the latter. While equity represents impartiality, the distribution is made in such a way to even opportunities for all the people. Conversely, equality indicates uniformity where everything is evenly distributed among people. So this is where the will help solve this. Next slide. Why economic justice matters. Again, to empower communities, to empower individuals. You know, they say that knowledge is empowering. So this knowledge that we are trying to teach everyone today will help empower individuals, help empower families, communities for the betterment of their life. Reduces poverty and exploitation. I've touched upon that already. When individuals are living in squalor, poor jobs, lack of income, they're more exposed to exploitation. And when they are maybe always doing acts of criminality or immoral acts to feed themselves and their families, where the economic justice token will provide a different solution. So instead of that individual who's in the ghetto thinking about robbing or stealing someone or committing, there's a way. It can also help reduce human trafficking and people having to go into prostitution, all these kinds of immoral things. So that's why this token matters. Besides that, also it can also build trust within the legal systems, because there's many cases where, again, the affluent client may succeed over the client but doesn't have much. So they help create better legal systems, more equality for all. It also fuels economic innovation, and it also supports peace and stability. Any questions at this time?
Okay, we're going to ask questions after
Okay.
slides. Yes.
Okay. So I spoke previously about how can individuals obtain equity through the token. Here we would have
Audio. Did we lose audio? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. just having some technical issues. So how economic justice works, we have here affluent. The affluent contribute financially by buying tokens, or they can subscribe, while those who are less privileged, the underserved, they can earn tokens via education, participation, engagement. So legal professionals then can provide services by gaining tokens as well to grow visibility. I think the key thing here is about participation as well. Very important. Through participation, this is how the tokens can be distributed and people can gain access to health services. Because by the more tokens that they gain, they'll be able to pay for these services through their tokens and their participation within their communities. Measuring economic justice.
Incoming call. Use a number for research. Susan
As mentioned before, gaining legal access with clients. So that means that they can pay for their services. Not does it necessarily have to be legal access as well. This is quite across the board. This can also help with housing. Those who are in poverty and are struggling to, they may not be able to acquire decent housing. So the economic justice token will help their get better housing and to maybe get on the property ladder, or maybe get out of their dire situation that they were once in. Healthcare, again, very important. If people can't get decent healthcare, then there's more chances that they were going to continue with their illnesses and increase the chances of dying more sooner rather than later. Representation can help bring diversity, not in just legal professions, but all professions. Participation, again, is the key factor here. It will help with generic growth and engagement for all communities. Wealth and equality, narrowing the income and legal gaps, housing gaps, healthcare gaps. Why should only the rich get decent healthcare? Decent for all. And this is one thing that the economic justice token will help to achieve. So real world impact. What this will help achieve here is people could be able to resolve disputes without fear. I spoke several weeks ago about refer to life in Jamaica. Many individuals don't wish to bring claims to court or disputes. Who do they turn to? Sometimes they try to go to these police officers for support. The police aren't there to help because there's corruption. So again, it favors those who are more affluent. Access these to the economic justice token, they will be more empowered and in a better financial position, so they can solve their disputes without fear. The youth can gain access to decent education. The youth can get access to justice. Very important. And as I mentioned before, land and contracts can be handled fairly. Again, certain countries can take a very, very long time. I myself have an issue right now with some land in Jamaica. It's been going on since 2017. A very long dispute and wranglings over land because, again, some individuals don't have the financial capacity, or the title has been so disfigured over generations. It's just a complete mess. Hopefully the equity just token solve problems. So we have spoke about what the economic justice achieve. It is a digital asset to unlock legal services, earn and purchasable, bridging financial gaps. How can we bridge financial gaps? We need to achieve equity. Equity is different to equality. And if I can draw attention to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it even clearly states that everyone is born equal, freedom and equality. They are talking about in 2030 how they plan to cease poverty, part of the 17 sustainable goals. I believe that this will not be achieved in 5 years' time. So what we can look towards a new way, a new opportunity. If the old way is not working to eradicate certain things, this is what the economic justice token will achieve. It will be a step towards eradicating poverty. Token holders. So what we have on this slide is, again, is how individuals can earn their tokens through participation. And those wealthy individuals will be able to purchase their tokens by where individuals can go and earn tokens through maybe participation, through education, and they can gain tokens this way, and it will create a funding pool where it'll increase their tokens, and then they'll be able to equity. That was something which Dr. Mashari will expand in later on. So we urge everyone to become a member, join the movement, join the new revolution. And Dr. Mashari will talk about how you can join the movement, become an ambassador of equity, and fund or deliver services. And we urge everyone to participate in this new revolution of equity, not just equality. That is the end of my presentation for now. Any questions?
Okay, thank you so much. Am I audible? Kimathi, could you confirm? Can you hear me? Yeah? No?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kimathi. These are very profound topics, you could say sacred topics, because it's something that attaches to every one of us, every one of us. And when we talk about equity, we are talking about every single individual. See, that is what is called human action. Yeah, human action. Everybody performs some action every day. And these actions performed by every single human, they are not recognized in the traditional finance system. And so there's no equity. The fact that every single human performs certain action every day or every minute of the day means that every person participates in equity production, let's say that. And so we're talking about participation. And so what the blockchain has given to us is the technology for capturing the participation of every individual. So people say, how do you make money if you're getting these tokens for free? These tokens are not free. You receive tokens for participating in action, and you gain revenue by something called return on participation. See that? Return on participation. So it means that we are shifting the governing dynamics of finance from return on investment to return on participation. And what, of course, if you have to communicate with people in finance, they're going to ask you, what are you investing? Investment can be seen as, Simon has explained to us, in 4 different levels of investment. At the very top is financial investment, where you pay US dollars and you receive ownership, or you are recognized towards something because you paid some dollars. That's money, investment of money. The second level of investment is investing in access, but access still does not cut the mustard, because there's a lot of people may not have that access itself. So access is not enough. At the very base, and you could say the foundation of the investment is investment of dignity. And so, Simon, you said in the beginning that equity is recognition of dignity of every individual. Every single human action is dignified and it's represented. And this is not something new, by the way, because dignity means that you get paid for what you're paying attention to yourself. And to explain to you, this is the information economy, which we have already lived with for the last, several decades, based on the information theory of communication, or the mathematical theory of communication. Okay, comes from the traditional theories, the economic theories, which were based on Newtonian mathematics, as we explained 2 weeks ago, to the new math that recognizes randomness or communication itself. Okay, so communication is how you signal your participation or your contribution by communicating your value to another person. Now, those companies that figured that out, I'll give you an example, company like Google, company like Amazon.com, companies like Facebook, they seem to be extremely wealthy. Of course, they don't just seem to, they're actually extremely wealthy. They have captured value that is, and you could say, uncanny, and they have this uncanny ability of capturing to become very valuable. And yet, the products they are giving to people seem to be free. For example, if you go to YouTube, you can watch all the videos on YouTube for as many hours as you want without YouTube asking you for money. And yet YouTube has got so much market value. How does it do it? Second, YouTube will allow you to upload in their space hundreds of thousands of videos, and of course there are billions of videos on YouTube right now, and YouTube gives you that service or completely free. And yet YouTube, owned by Google, has the largest market capitalization. How is that? How does that sounds almost like counterintuitive, that Google is so rich and yet is not charging people any money. Then we have companies like Facebook as well doing that. And then of course we have so many examples. So you see where those companies are getting value from is recognizing the dignity of every individual, that the Google itself allows you to share your long videos, your shorts, without coming to tell you, listen, you cannot post your videos here because we don't care. So it gives you access to your ability to upload your humanity, to express yourself online to the world. And see, good. So that technology is known as Web 2. Web 2, of course, even LinkedIn, the same thing. So, but those companies give you access, but they have not gone all the way to the individual human dignity, because there's still a lot of people, even when we have Google providing all those free services, there's still a lot of people who do not have access to Google services. And then, of course, they cannot upload their videos, they cannot share anything because this still has not reached them. And that's where the blockchain comes in. Now the blockchain now is able to expand that even further. That representation of dignity or participation of everyone, every human being. Of course, every human being have got to have access to a cell phone. So what we are saying is that we have mathematics already, which came around 1948, given to us by Shannon, which is called mathematical theory of communication. But we have not used it to do the right things. Now, this is the greatest opportunity to now use it in our professional work. Because while Google has been doing this, while Facebook has been doing this, physicians don't use it in their clinical practice. Lawyers don't use it in their legal practice. Neither do engineers use it in their engineering practice. And neither do accountants use it because it is still seen, it's still not understood. So what we are talking about is now expanding that to, first of all, to the base layer of humanity, which is human rights itself, which is a legal question, and now create the economic justice token, because economic justice itself at the foundation of human rights. There is no human right without economic justice. Okay, you cannot talk about human rights where this human doesn't have access to economic justice. And of course, to have access to economic justice, you have to recognize the value of that individual, that the dignity of every individual becomes recognized. And so when that dignity is not seen, then you have violation of human rights. And of course that is built into the traditional economic system. That the economic system, you can say it is built specifically for violating human rights. It's not built, so the violation of human rights is actually in the architecture of the traditional economic system because it is exclusive. Instead of including people in the economy, recognizing their dignity, it is exclusive. And you have all these boundaries, nations and all that, then immigration's question becomes very severe. And of course, denial of access to basic human rights. Basic human rights is given to us by Abraham Maslow in 1949. Are food. If you can deny people access to food, then you are going to get them dying out of starvation, as you're seeing in Gaza out there. Yeah, that you can weaken the people by denying them access to food. But if access to food or denial of access to food is not only happening in Gaza, it is happening all over the world. So a lot of people are very hungry just because the traditional finance system is structured in a way that only certain people have got abundance of food. The rest of the people can starve to death. We don't care. Yeah. Second, shelter in housing. That if for you to have a healthy life, you need to live somewhere that you're protected from, the vagaries of the environment, for example, the weather. And that is called shelter. And the traditional finance system creates massive populations, numbers of people who are without shelter. They are called homeless, or people who they are unhoused. Let's call them unhoused people. Yeah, and so these are basic human needs, which the traditional finance system is not able to solve. It's a great question because it is not inclusive. It does not recognize participation of all those people who are unhoused or don't have access to food because they don't have access to what? Yeah, the value of the work is not representable in the traditional finance system. And such people are called poor. We say poverty. So the United Nations has embarked on creating these strategic development goals, for 2017, they say they are going to eradicate poverty by 2030. As Simon says, that is impossible. It's an adventure in missing the points. Is exactly what the great teacher called Jesus Christ called abomination that causes desolation. It's described in the book of Daniel. See, abomination that causes desolation. An abomination is an idea which is so bad, is so displaced that when you implement it, it causes billions of people to die. So an abomination that causes desolation. Yeah. What did the great teacher say about such an abomination that causes desolation? He said, when you see an abomination that causes desolation, oh, he said, oh Judea, I think, oh Judea, flee to the mountains. Why did he say that? Because when you build a theoretical model that is actually, instead of saving human lives, is going to destroy human lives, it just run away as flee as hard as you can. But see, you cannot flee for a system that's already built. What it means, I think when he was saying flee, it was saying think different. Create a new model, a new system that is not going to produce desolation. Desolation is this idea of everybody dying without knowing what's killing them. That is desolation. So to get that, and of course, from the wisdom of Albert Einstein himself in 1929, if you want to solve a problem, Albert Einstein said that you cannot solve a problem using the same thinking that you used when you created that problem. See? You cannot solve a problem using the same thinking that you used to solve that problem. And what he meant is that you must think different. You must use new math, different math from the math that leads to abomination that causes desolation. Because I can tell you the traditional economic system produces desolation, causes poverty, increases war, immigration problem, lack of shelter, lack of food, all that is desolation. But we have a technology today that is based on new math, the mathematical theory of communication that recognizes everybody's ability to participate. And so, you're using following the advice by Albert Einstein, say, we cannot end poverty using the same thinking that we use to produce that poverty. We cannot end slavery using the same thinking that we use to produce that slavery. We cannot end racism using the same thinking that we use to produce that racism. So you see, that is the fundamental thing. And of course, the person who has been exemplified that, people who know that in present system are people like Google, people like Apple Computer. Even Steve Jobs said that, of course, in Steve Jobs, when he's making Apple, he increased Apple innovation. Steve Jobs said in 1985, think different. Think different. That different thinking. He was not just saying think different using the same thinking. He's saying use a different model, a different theory, a different philosophy, a different mathematics, and that is what we are called upon to do. And that is what Simon Kimathi is talking to us about. Now, we cannot change, we cannot produce human rights using the same thinking that produced the violation of human rights that we have today. See? And so we have to think different. And all that, what will be totally startling to everybody and what is shocking is that all that is science and technology. Can you believe that? Just so you know, the secret is understanding technology. Technology is understanding how the world works. You see, like how the planets move, produces gravity, how the lights produce, transports energy. That is all science. And that, for just in case it has not occurred to you, that is the whole message in Genesis 1, in the Christian Bible. That's what surprised me. In the Christian Bible, it described all that, like how to create something. Yeah, in Genesis, but we are not going to go into the, because the Bible was written to explain to us how we can create things. But then people, I think, misappropriated it and used it for other things. Anyway, so Simon, I have several questions for you, and maybe other people have got several questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to answer the questions posed. Okay.
So question.
But thank you for that explanation there. What you just said there, Dr. Mashai, very important stuff that you mentioned. And
Yes,
what you said there, a different thinking is very much required.
think different.
Yeah, have to think different. That resonated very much with myself. I've spoken to many individuals, let's say, for example, who are built on a Rastafarian faith. They are very old school, they're very stuck in their ways, and they still believe that heavens or something will change, but it will not change on their old beliefs. But sometimes you can't force these individuals on their way of thinking. You just have to respect the way they think. However, for change to happen, we have to change our way of thinking. So I really appreciate what you said there. Else, if we don't change, we will always find ourselves in the same old quagmire, and that's how we are as and this is where we find ourselves in this day and age. Nothing is changing. Rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer, and those who are facing injustices are having those injustices. So I think we need to change our way of thinking to get different results. So yeah, I just had to commend you there for what you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I'm pleased that you mentioned the Rastafari movement, because I think they're very spiritual people, and I would like to hazard that they read the Christian Bible. I don't know, or maybe they read the Bible, the Genesis itself, because the Rastafari movement, the way I've understood it, it's originated from Ethiopia and in East Africa, and their belief system is the one that was actually collected to now build the entire Christian Bible. So whatever is in the Christian Bible was before it was found in Ethiopia and Egypt. Okay, long time ago. Yeah, and why I'm saying this is they're not wrong in what they're doing. It's just they need to read those scriptures even deeply to understand what they mean. Because as I said, that this whole thing is described in Genesis. As in Genesis 1, in the Bible, which is also in the Rastafari movement, it says that in the beginning, the earth was void and without form. See? God created the earth. In the beginning, the God created the earth, and the earth was void and without form. See that? And then what happened? The Spirit of God moved. Yeah? And when the Spirit of God moved, and he said, let there be light. Okay? And there was light. You see that? That's the Genesis moment that you can, so if you understand that your spirit has to move, movement meaning thinking different.
Yep.
Yeah, thinking different. And if you don't think different, you can never see the light. So we are told that the spirit moves. And when the spirit moves, you see the light.
That is it.
Yeah, that is it. It's in the first two statements. So before that, the earth was void and without form. Yeah. So when the spirit moves, then it shifts. That in ordinary terms, even in the Greek philosophy, they call it metanoia. Metanoia is a shift of consciousness. Just this thing that boom happens and say, oh my goodness, what have I been thinking? But that shift, which is so fundamental, is like in now for the economy to come from an exclusive economy with the economy with exclusion. The spirit has to move. We have to have a shift of consciousness so that we say, why are we not inclusive? We already have the technology for inclusion, and then we see the light. See?
Yeah.
That's it. So I think what now we can say is that all people, not just Rastafari, everyone in the world, is to understand that we have a duty to understand that we are called upon to think different. Even the Holy Scriptures itself. Remember, that power is given to you. Because if you go down Genesis, you come down the verse, Genesis 1:26, that says, and God said, let's create man in our own image. You see, at the top, you say it's God who is moving the spirit. But then at the very bottom in Genesis 1:26, chapter 26, let's create man in our own image. So, and in the same image, they created man, and he gave them the power to create things just like we have been. So it means that you have the power to move the spirit. You see, your spirit can move, and then you see the light, you shed the light. But see what happens, people continue talking, as you say, you can see that quagmire, where the earth is without shape or form. That's the quagmire you talked about, that earth without shape or form. And then we say that, oh, we need reparations, we need this. People they're crying all the time for someone else to come from out there to help them. But I can tell you the power to shift that metanoia is within every human being. See? And that's what equity is all about. That power is equitably distributed. So because see, Genesis 1 it's a text about equity already.
Yeah.
Because we were told that every single one of us were given the power where we may not have, but that is what they're saying, that equity is in the genesis of every one of us. And so what I wanted to ask you, now you even as a lawyer yourself, have you ever experienced situations where you're marginalized that yeah, let's say, let me ask this question properly. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was asking, have you ever found yourself needing legal help and you not know where to turn? For example, you give us that example of your land in Jamaica. Yeah.
Yes. Again, that's a very good question. Yes, I have encountered times where I couldn't acquire legal support or couldn't afford it. Again, as I said, with the issue with the land in Jamaica, it's still ongoing because I didn't have access to certain funds to handle all the issues that were happening at that time. And also, again, with the Jamaican legal system, it's a very, very slow, backward system, and hence why it's taken over 7 odd years. So the issue what I'm having right now, because of finances at the time, I couldn't afford. And when I was able to afford the fees to help with the land wranglings, as I like to say, the I think there was 6 years to bring a claim now, because what's happened now is there's so-called fraud on the land. I purchased land. The people who were looking after the land, they have now sold that so-called land to somebody else. So it's a complete and utter mess. So in a sense, I have lost out on land, or if I wish to try and pursue it, it's going to cost me even more to get other lawyers involved. And so, yeah, but it has a time. So basically, yes, I didn't know where to turn, because everyone who I turned to, they were saying, well, I can do it this way, I can do it that way. So again, a lack of education probably at the time didn't help. But because the the justice system in Jamaica is very backward, very slow. I didn't know where to turn to be honest. So I have to shut out
Can you imagine now yourself, you're already a lawyer and you're having all these difficulties. Imagine now a
Yeah.
common person. You're not an individual. Isn't that crazy?
It
That
is. Yes.
Yeah, so what are we supposed to do as common people of the Hoifalai? What are we supposed to do? You see, and yet we say we have legal system protect.
Yeah, that's true. So even as a legal practitioners, we still can be still face injustices. So no. As I think I made a quotation. Injustice. There's no discrimination against that. Doesn't matter whether you're a lawyer or wherever. Yeah. So I've suffered directly as a result of not being able to afford the fees, or that the system in Jamaica wasn't designed to help me personally. So again, if I could have gone to the police weren't very helpful. Again, so there's just again, it goes back to that's the way the systems are designed, not really very beneficial to help anybody, to be honest. And even if I could afford it now, I still would struggle to acquire that land back. And this is a very serious problem. So yeah.
This land problem very serious. Even in Kenya, where I come from, you can have one piece of land having about 3 or 4 different title deeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the title deed is they're issued by the Ministry of Land. So ultimately, you do not know who owns that land.
Yeah.
And so when you try to buy a piece of land, then somebody else comes up and says, oh, this is my land because I have a title deed. And then as the word goes out that the land is being bought, even a third person comes up and shows up and says, oh, this is my piece of land. I have the title deed. Now, who is true?
Yeah.
The blockchain is going to help solve that problem. I think we're going to discuss about land, tokenization of real estate in a different session. And how you cannot alter, because why that happens, the titles becomes alterable or mutable. You can in the traditional system, because they are done by human beings. But if the thing is automated, you cannot alter it because the blockchain is unmutable. We talk about that. So I think the next thing would be like what do you think? What I think what I'm trying to ask you, what would change in our lives if legal help would be something that we earn by participating, or when our dignity is recognized? What would change in our life instead of us having to buy it? Like someone says you have to have so much money in order for you to get access to it. What would change in our lives?
Well, that's a wonderful, thought-provoking question. If justice were a currency, I'll say it would be measured in all 3 ways, in different ways. Let's say money would definitely come into play, because as we know, financial resources often determine access to quality legal representation. Without money, people might not be able to secure their basic rights, which is a huge issue when it comes to economic justice, which I mentioned about my issue in Jamaica. There we go. That's one good point. My next point would be access. Access is crucial. The real value in justice is how accessible it is to everyone, no matter of their socio-economical backgrounds. I believe without access, the concept of justice becomes a luxury and not a right. You mentioned the word dignity a lot previously, and I think that's the most intangible but powerful measurement of all. True justice isn't about solving problems in a transactional way. It's about restoring people's dignity, making sure that they are seen, heard, and respected, regardless of their financial standing. So I would say money, access, and dignity. It would definitely solve.
Awesome.
Hope that answers that question.
Yes, that's great. So it's about dignity. I mean, it means that everybody's dignity becomes recognized. That's what will change.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you now, when did you realize that blockchain could change the rules? Yeah.
Wow. I think that's a very good question.
Mm.
And I think you mentioned earlier on about shift of thought. Again, throughout my legal career and my undergrad days and masters and postgraduate, I've been trying to solve this problem about reparations for slavery. That was a lot of my undergrad work. And I went through the arguments, the 2 and the 4. Should Britain pay for their acts of slavery? And though I concluded that yes, there should be a moral obligation if we're looking at the facts of how Germany have repaid for their acts for the Holocaust, and rightfully so. And even up to today, they're still paying for reparations even to the survivors. So I've gone through all the case law, UN legal arguments and resolutions and all these paragraphs, and there's all these loopholes in the law which kind of give immunity for acts of slavery from European colonial governments prior to 1948. So it's very, what's the word? It's unjust. Again, it goes back to that injustices. It's reparations are for one, but not for all. So I think when I realized the blockchain now, that's when that light was turned on. Going back to what you said, the light had just switched. I'm thinking, okay, how can we ask a thief to repay back reparations? So my research has taken on to a different dimension now. What is the answer? Are we going to try and get equality, reparations? Are we going to wait around hanging for crumbs or whatever? No, I think the blockchain can rewrite these rules. It can bring forth equity. Because again, I was part of the Rastafari movement in Jamaica. They know that I'm a lawyer. They said we would like to bring a case to the ICCJ or Hague or whatever about reparations. Okay, how are you going to pay for this? First and foremost, if that's even the case, because a case of that magnitude, you'll be going up against the world's greatest lawyers, and I don't think selling some brooms on a hilltop is not going to bring forth that equity, that income. So the blockchain has brought forth a different perspective in regards to not even trying to get reparations, but just to get equity for each and everyone, because everyone deserves to live justly, to human dignity. And I think if we start trying to focus on reparations or things of the past, but move forward, I think that is the best way. Because again, the blockchain can rewrite the rules of all legal access. It's uncompromised. There's no governance that's overlooking it. It's decentralized. So the idea that individuals can own and control their own identity, their own sovereignty, I think that's important, because these governances for the last 200 years, 300 years, they have their structures in place. And it is what it is, unfortunately. So with the blockchain, it can bypass all of these traditional gatekeepers, like, for example, governments, all these companies who have made their wealth through mining, these companies who have set up in East Asia, through centuries, you know, through corrupt contractual means. The blockchain can rewrite the future going forward, I believe. So it was discovering blockchain that light. I was taken from the darkness and into the light.
That's right. Amazing. Reparations. Well, big topic, because people have been asking for reparations, you know, for a long time, from colonialism, from slavery, from all this oppressive. And of course, that, you know, began in the 1940s, 1948, the United Nations, German being asked to repay people for the Holocaust. And of course, German has been paying. But the British Empire, which has been going on for what, hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years or so, is it going to repay for colonization? Does it even have the money to pay? Is the King of England going to say, okay, let's start paying when you guys will colonized and we stole all your resources shamelessly? And then we have colonized slavery, which we know it did. And then, of course, even now we have the International Court of Criminal Justice out there in The Hague, which is still in Europe, owned by the same people that we will go into for reparation. And so that becomes another adventure in missing the point, because it is very hard to ask a thief to pay you with the money that the thief has stolen. Well, of course you can ask, but then who is going to enforce it? There is no one, even if, say, for example, we were to go to the International Court of Criminal Justice and we got a ruling saying that you, Mr. British, or Mr. Queen of the British Empire, you have to pay all those people you colonized. And then you say, all you European guys, you have to pay for slavery or for the slave trade. Yeah? And then that's a ruling. The judge says that. Then how do you enforce that? How can it be enforced? There is nobody today, there's no organization, no institution that can actually enforce that. You know, like the way in the criminal justice system, you have the police that come and look for criminals, they capture criminals, and then of course they go to court, and then they're given a sentence, and then there is the enforcement in the legal system. In these international matters, reparations, slavery, slave trade, there is no one, including the United Nations itself. It does not have the power to enforce any judgments that are made by even the international court. So it's just hollow, it's empty. Like you say, an empty suit. Yeah, that's what Nassim Taleb calls them, empty suits. Yeah, there are people, you think there are people inside there, but the suit is empty. Nothing. Yeah. And so instead of spending a lot of time and a lot of money chasing the wind, then we have technology that we can build the future we truly want. And that's the blockchain. The blockchain can help us build value without having to, all what has happened in the past is the past. It doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean we forget it. It means that we know it happened, but there's no system that we can have today to enforce it. Again, even if we create such a system, it will be created within the same thinking. That is totally contrary to what Albert Einstein was telling us. You cannot solve a problem using the same thinking that we used to create that problem. See, so if we used that exclusionary system to create the problem of slavery, to create the problem of colonization, to create all that old math, if we use that, then we say we use the same math to make a solution, that is when you know that we are on an adventure in missing the point. We are going to be in the wilderness for another 40 years. 40 years in the Bible, symbolic of walking around in the desert without knowing what to do. Or wilderness. That's the wilderness, not even a desert. And so this is why think different. We have to get that shift of consciousness, that movement of the spirit, so that we can say, let there be light. And the light is a technology that we can use to build our value, to build our future with the blockchain. I think that's what the power is. And then that building itself, which has been embodying the future we truly want, it's on a token, like economic justice token itself, or even actual token. That is what it embodies, giving body to that future we truly want. Yeah, so that's a great answer. Yeah, that's a great answer. I think I love it because it means that now we have the language to communicate. Even for all those people looking for reparations, you need to tell them that reparations, even if you look for it for another 1,000 years, you are never going to be repaid.
Yeah.
First of all, that person you'll be asking for to pay that money, it doesn't have it. We might think that the Queen of England is very wealthy, but the money that now, if you go into a balance sheet saying, how much money does the Queen of England owe us for having colonized us? That is hundreds of trillions of dollars. That person doesn't have that money. Yeah, that's one. Second, that person, there's no one to enforce that judgment in any way, even if that person had the money. Yeah, so reparations are not, maybe, yeah, so this one I'm thinking at this, we have to make a very strong case for people to focus on building the future they truly want under this new light, instead of spending a lot of energy withering in the wilderness.
40 years, 40 more years, it's true.
Yeah, I wrote an article about that. I wrote an article about this week, and I call it, it's like asking the spider to destroy its own web.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the spider survives because of its web, and it uses its web for catching insects so it can eat. Yeah. Are we going to ask the spider to destroy its own web? It's going to ask it, and where am I going to get food? Yeah. Yeah. You see, that's the thing. The spider will never destroy its own web. That means that instead of asking the spider to destroy its own web, we create a whole new system, a whole new type of web, or a different architecture.
That's it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically that was the blockchain has brought forth that light. And now I'm no longer trying to argue reparations. I'm looking to have more motivation now to build this new building block, the blockchain, and enlighten others about it as well.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about someone who today, an individual who is locked out of the justice system, like many of us who are supposed to work in the third world, or the common people, because you say the justice system is for the wealthy. Now, how is the economic justice token going to help a person who is locked out of the justice system to gain access to justice? Yeah. Can you walk us through that? Like, tell us, how is it going to?
Going back to my university days, I worked at a community legal clinic.
Yeah.
And again, it's going back to my studying days and law centers, where they mainly recruit, say, for example, students not who are not qualified yet,
Yeah.
but they volunteer at these centers. And there will always be like maybe one solicitor who is trying to who would oversee the work, but one solicitor to maybe thousands. How can that even, where's the balance there? So that's why they used a lot of volunteers who are not legally qualified to give any advice. However, I remember when I was working there in a community aid clinic, I was having a conversation or trying to assist a single mother. She was working two jobs at the time, and she had been fairly evicted due to her landlord exploiting the legal loopholes in housing law. She had no legal representation because she couldn't afford it. She didn't even know where to start. I obviously I took her information and queries, but I had to then pass it on to the legal clinic solicitor, who would then get back to her. Who knows when that time would have been. But I remember watching her walk away, not because she was wrong, but because the system made access to justice a luxury, So in a sense, she's coming to a place to try and get legal aid. She's facing injustice because of the landlord, and she's coming to she's unable to pay for her services, hoping to get some support from the solicitor, who then looks at the case and would take it on based on its merit. So already we're seeing inequalities there in the legal system because someone can't pay.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's really bad. If she was very financially affluent, like I said before, she could go to top kahuna lawyer and it would have been settled and very strong legal representation. But because she's coming to a legal aid clinic, the solicitor, who has so many files to handle, or at one time he or she would only pick the ones where she or he would feel are more stronger in the case, or who have more chances of success. So I'm seeing the indifferences there already. Yeah. So that case really stuck on me, and I believe it will be exactly where I see the potential of the economic justice token. So imagine, instead of being blocked by costs, bureaucracy, or lack of connections, if she had held a token that granted her immediate access to better legal resources, community advocacy, or even funds or DAO that could fund her case. That's a decentralized autonomous organization that could fund her case through collective action. Blockchain wouldn't just streamline access, it would be it would redistribute power, restoring justice as a right and not just a privilege. That's what I believe.
That's very powerful. So what you're saying, and so I want us to unpack this, because this is very important, because this is where the rubber hits the road. Okay, you have a lady here, who is having a legal issue. I mean, maybe tenant, she's being discriminated, whatever is going on, but she needs legal help. She comes to the legal aid clinic. Most of those legal aid clinics are usually at the universities, because I think and that's the whole issue here, that they're using students. Students also, they're not considered, and the value of the students does not count, because they're saying they should not be paid. Yeah. So we have them here in Boston, for example. Northeastern University has got Northeastern Law Center. The Harvard University has got Harvard University Law Center. All this has got these legal aid clinics for the indigent, but they're not really indigent. They're not really for the indigent, because if you try to use the Harvard Law Center, the Harvard University Law Center, or the Harvard Law School Law Center, they're going to send you a bill, and they say, we are not going to start the case before you pay. Okay, and these are students, and that's Harvard. But Northeastern University does not send you a bill; it helps you, and then we have other legal aid clinics like Greater Boston Legal Services. And then we have the Disability Law Center in Massachusetts Disability Law Center. However, those services, even as good as they sound, they are still not accessible. And you see, first of all, the student clinics themselves are they are manned by the students. Those are the attendants. Of course, they have a professor who they're going to consult. But because it's free, it's, you know, it's almost as if the kids are not taken very seriously. And so what you're saying in the blockchain economy, this lady who comes to bring her case to the law clinic, she earns tokens for just showing up to that law center, isn't it? She receives tokens.
Yep.
That is, and why is she going to receive tokens? Because she's receiving tokens for her attention, for her coming to learn about what to do with her problem, for her participation. She receives tokens. She's not going to buy those tokens, but she's going to earn tokens for bringing a legal issue to the legal clinic, because that's important. Because without someone bringing a legal issue to the legal clinic, then the whole legal clinic doesn't work. The legal clinic work relies on what's called stock feedstock, on getting cases being brought there. And so if you want to get people to participate in bringing their cases, you need to reward them, yeah, for that. Just like the way Google gives you free, you go to YouTube, Google doesn't pay you for the attention, but Google earns money for that. Okay, so that's the first person who benefits from the token. So the second one is the student who's providing those legal services. When the student provides a legal service and does it completely, does it well, that student also gets awarded tokens for him participating in providing legal services. So that is the economic justice token. Not only is economic justice token given to the clients, let's say the client has come here so seeking for legal help, but also the student also receives token for providing that service, because the student is providing these services in his learning process. So he's getting rewarded for learning, for education. That's what we are talking about. That's the value of his education or learning, because what he's going to learn, he's going to use it in future to build up something good for the economy, for the people. And so and you see, this is what I said is at the very, very, very granular level of the whole process, that if we now can recognize and give and reward tokens for participation for the person bringing the case, plus the student who is offering the services, then that becomes very powerful. And then a lot of people ask, how is it going to gain value in the market? How those tokens going to gain value in the market? Because suppose it looks like you're giving them for free. I give you an example of what happens in the traditional economy. When you fly Delta Airlines, that's, this is in the commercial airlines. You fly Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines gives you loyalty miles. Or flying or Sky Miles. Some companies call them Sky Miles, others call them loyalty miles. Those loyalty points that you get from Delta Airlines, where do they come from and where do they go? And in fact, those loyalty miles have got economic value because you can redeem them in the market to get another ticket, or you can bump up your ticket from economy class to business class or to first class, just using loyalty miles alone. But you did not spend any money. So where does that come from? So meaning that you're getting loyalty miles for participating with the Delta network, because you are loyal to the Delta network. Now, what blockchain has done is now to generalize that whole system, that if you participate in doing good, you participate in bringing a case to the legal clinic that's being loyal to economic justice, you receive economic justice token. If you participate in providing a pro bono service, instead of that service being pro bono, you are also rewarded tokens for providing such a service. And so it's a win-win-win situation all the way. And that's how we're going to build it. Now, because Delta Airlines gives loyalty points for free, it doesn't become broke or bankrupt. In fact, Delta Airlines is now the largest airline network in the world, but has very, very good loyalty points because I've experienced them. And so how is it that Delta Airlines is able to gain so much value by dishing out a lot of loyalty points of SkyMiles or Delta SkyMiles? Because it engenders participation. It rewards everybody who is using its own system. And so if that could happen even in a traditional economy, you can see that now being amplified 1 billion times on the blockchain. Yeah. So that's what I love about this example of the legal clinic. Mm.
Yeah. Wonderful. That's wonderful.
Now, given that, now if the economic justice token succeeds, what would be the change in the world that you see now in your own vision? Would the world be different?
Wow.
Mhm.
That's a wonderful question, Dr. Masharia. I know Martin Luther King had a dream. However, I too am a bit of a dreamer. One thing I can say is that within 5 years' time, I think poverty is the key one for me. I would love to see poverty eradicated, or steps towards progressive steps towards eradicating. That's what I see. I see the economic justice token, if it was to succeed, that it would be under ungoverned governance, and it would lead towards that. Because again, like I said to you before, but poverty is the root of all. To me, I think it's the root of all evil. Out of poverty comes crime. Out of poverty comes human trafficking. Out of poverty can cause rape, robbery, theft. All immoral things can come out of poverty. I know in Jamaica, people who are in poverty, they think that religion will save them. They go to a church, and through being in the church now, they face even more violations through the congregation or the immoral pastor who pries his eyes on the young schoolgirls or the pastor boys. So through poverty can come so many problems, you know. So if the token was to succeed, I believe it will see a world where everyone would have sovereignty, you know. They would have access to legal they'll have legal access, you know, services. They would have access to better healthcare. They would have access to education. There'll be more probably self-employed people on the earth, more content creators, more YouTube. There'll be more independent. There'll be more independent.
Yes.
Yeah. Ordinary people will have the tools to assert their lives, their rights directly, securely, and affordably. You know, and say for example, if there was a complaint, it can be filed. If they're housed and there's an issue with eviction, they can get legal access. If there's illnesses, they wouldn't have to wait so long on the waiting list, hoping that they will be seen. All these things would help if the token succeeds. Sorry.
You need to drink some water.
Yes, for lawyers, as a legal practitioner, I believe this would mean a shift from gatekeeping to guidance, working alongside tech to expand impact, not just managing caseloads. For communities, it means owning the mechanisms of justice, crowdfunding, legal defense, voting on priorities through DOOs, or using tokens to access education and advocacy and healthcare. So if the token succeeds, it would be, I would see it being feasible, credible steps towards empowering, uplifting. It may not eradicate poverty in 5 years, but I hope it would lead towards individuals living more of a fulfilling life and not having to be victims of poverty, victims of modern day slavery, victims of human trafficking, or victims of or being sold into slavery, starting into prostitution. All these things are hopefully will be eradicated or steps towards.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kimathi, because I think, you know, things like poverty, they are created by absence of wealth. See, and this is exactly what also Einstein found out when he was studying light itself. And he told us darkness does not exist. Darkness is absence of light. Because you do not chase the darkness out in order for you to get light. So you don't reduce darkness in order for you to get light in your room. You just flip the switch turns on and the lights come. And this is, I think this is a very, very important discussion here about poverty. Light itself, for you to get light in your house, you need electricity. You know, in the night, you cannot have lights by chasing that light out or coming with a bucket and scooping the light out of the room. You know, you say, let us scoop all this light, let us scoop all this darkness, and then we are going to have light. Okay? It has taken years and years of work for discovering a technology that will light. Because what people are, scientists or even physicists, even Isaac Newton himself, understood that light itself is a technology which has got physical properties that you can actually measure the properties of light. Darkness itself has no physical properties. You cannot measure it because it doesn't exist. The same thing with poverty. You can say wealth is measurable. You can measure wealth. It has got physical properties. But poverty itself is not measurable, except you can see people at the World Bank International or even the United Nations talking about the degree of poverty. That is nonsense. It's actually not measurable. The same way you cannot quantify darkness. So what's called pitch darkness, highly, you could say intensive darkness, is the lowest frequency of light. As you start increasing the frequency of light, the darkness begins to disappear. And you just need to get a certain threshold. Then all the darkness goes away. And of course, what happened in the great technological innovation is discovery of electricity, that now you don't have to turn to increase light slowly with the current, but you just flip the switch and you get a flat light. If it took technology, electricity itself, electrical technology, to produce light, what you're saying here is going to take technology to produce wealth. See that? Technology for wealth creation is the blockchain itself, or obviously economic justice, economic freedom is the blockchain itself. And I was saying, what Kimathi was saying is that if you now flip the switch, which is called shade of consciousness, that movement of spirit, just flipping the switch, turning it upwards towards technology of lights, which is the blockchain itself, then we are not talking about eradicating poverty, but we are not talking about creating wealthy people, because people are creators everywhere. And that's what even Google has got this whole thing about a Google creator, YouTube creator. So people are creating things on a continuous basis. You see, what Google has done with YouTube is first, the first step in acknowledging the creative power of each and every individual. That is flipping up the switch. And you can see people who have understood that they'll become billionaires on YouTube, just making YouTube videos or making social media posts. And so that's the same thing. Now we are talking about doing that on a large scale. Flipping the switch towards creation, to activate the creator within every single one of us. And when that happens, if we can now activate the creator within, I believe that poverty will not be showing. Just like if you turn on the switch, like darkness disappears. Where does it go? Does it go somewhere to hide? Yeah. And believe it or not, that is the technology that is producing light that is chasing away darkness. It just meant that darkness was actually not there in the beginning. What was there is that absence of light, which shows itself as darkness. However, you flip the switch, darkness goes away, hiding places. And now this is what I'm thinking. What you're saying that the economic justice token, if it flips the switch, people have access to economic justice, have access to legal services, and the poverty that produces all those negative things like human trafficking, criminality, all those things disappear the way darkness disappears when you turn on the switch. Do I understand what you're saying, Mr. Kimathi?
Yes, you have gave it a technical answer. I probably came with a philosophical way, but I like you came with the crux of it all, to be honest, and I believe you are right, and that's exactly what I mean. It's flicking that switch, as we said earlier on, about when did I realize I'm trying to trace reparations, so I'm stuck in that old way of thinking. Now I have a different mindset, and it's like that switch has just been turned, and now I'm thinking, okay, this is the right way now, or this is the solution to the problem, because you can't keep thinking the old way, where you once were. So for those individuals who are in so-called this constructive poverty through oppressive systems, if we switched their way of thinking or provided a different solution, then yeah, poverty would no longer exist.
We talk about poverty as a thing. So the United Nations is out there telling people we are going to eradicate poverty by 2025. But they're not saying that we have the technology for producing wealth. See that?
Exactly. So in 5 years it will not be eradicated, and that was their pledge.
Yeah, it's like people saying we are going to eradicate darkness by 2030, and they are not actually making electrical bulbs.
That is it. So yes, I believe, and I do. Yeah, I believe in there's a switch has been flipped, and the movement of spirit is in full motion. And
yeah.
blockchain, yeah, in 5 years, if the blockchain was to take hold of go where it's meant to go, yeah, it would be amazing.
Would like to speak to, is it the Rastafari community? Do they read the Bible itself, the Christian Bible, the Genesis?
They
have a different scripture.
It's a good thing you mentioned that. They do read the Old Testaments, and if I do read the King James, but again, where did that King James Bible come from? England. So they're reading the same Bible, but had colonized them.
Well, let me tell you, King James himself, he has done a really good job to actually maintain the original scripts the way, because all those original scriptures had come in from the Horn of Africa, Egypt, and Ethiopian. So that whole Genesis, we are told that's written by Moses. That whole thing about the Spirit moving so that you can shed light was written before King James showed up. King James just, I could say he plagiarized the whole thing. but he did a good job in. Yeah, it's okay because he has actually helped to preserve it or translate it into English language. I think that's the closest translation that we have for the original scripts.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think we can work with that and see that because that's talking about the spirit moving, and that's called metanoia. That is the old Greek word for that is the shifts of consciousness. Now, what were we talking about? We're talking about poverty, and well, which is a thing that doesn't really exist. It's just like that thing in the beginning where the earth was void and without shape, without form. That is what we call poverty. The earth was the earth was void and without form. Poverty is void, it's absence.
Yeah.
And so we cannot be talking about poverty as if it's a thing, it's a phenomenon that we want to solve. Just like darkness is not a problem that we want to solve.
Mhm.
What was happening is the absence of light. And then people went to work to find how do we assemble technology to produce lights. So we did not say, how do we assemble technology to chase poverty? See that you cannot chase a void. And so long as we manage to communicate this to our people, that poverty cannot be chased with a broomstick like a dirty dog out there. No, you cannot chase it because it's not there, it's void. And what we have to do is understand the technology for creating wealth for every one of us. That we already know that each and every one of us has got that wealth that is within them. Everyone is a creator.
Yep.
All we have to do is figure out the technology for activating or actuating that creator within each one of us. And then you see this thing called poverty disappearing. Like when you flip the switch, darkness just goes away somewhere else.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere. Darkness is not there in the first place. It just means that the light was not there.
Dr. Mashari, there was a hand up. So I think somebody was asking I think somebody had put their hand up to ask a question.
Okay. Yeah.
Susan, can you assist? Who was that? Would they like to unmute themselves and ask a question?
I think it was I saw hand. I think it was Doc.
Me? I don't know.
I've seen
I
a
don't
hand up
know.
about 5 minutes ago. It was there for a while.
Oh, it went
Yeah,
down.
that was Doc.
What did I do? I touched something.
Yeah, I think you touched there is a hand button button or something. Yes.
Okay, well, sorry, I didn't know that, but yeah, then I'm asking if for every one of us who's here, what would that mean for you to participate in it? What would that mean for you? How would this make sense for you?
Say that question again, please. Sorry, I didn't quite hear that. Sorry. What was that? Could you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
So what I'm saying that how many of us who are here, and of course, even because this it's also going to the YouTube, how many of you be listening and watching this video would benefit from economic justice token? You see, how and when I would like you to think how you, as a person who is listening to this, how you would benefit from that, particularly from getting free legal advice, if that free legal advice was just one click away.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, you can imagine, and I want us to imagine as all the consumers in this world and all the people, individuals, how would they benefit from? I mean, and yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Going back to the scenario earlier on about what I mentioned about the lady who had two jobs and for the housing issue. So basically, in her case, who was facing eviction, it would eradicate that scenario would never have happened, for example. So anyone who's facing eviction, issues with wages, theft, discrimination, the truth is that most people don't really need a lawyer every day. But I think when they do need a lawyer, it would be great if such barriers weren't there, or access is more easable, or access is accessible. So they could possibly get trusted legal advice just being a click away. There's no long waits. You know, it's affordable. There'll be no free legal advice, because if you think about it, in a sense, in life, you get, is the same as I saying, you get what you pay for, you know. And I know before I've gone to, let's say if I had an issue with a vehicle, and I take it to a guy who I know he can fix it for maybe £400, £300 cheaper. Next thing I know, the car's mangled, the wheels falling off. But I should have gone to a proper individual to take it, or to a proper garage. We may have paid a bit, £300 more, but I know it was a proper job. So in a sense, as I saying, you get what you pay for. So with free legal advice, it could possibly be any partial advice. It could be from maybe a junior lawyer, or maybe someone who maybe not so qualified. But if it was accessible to all, just for one click away, then the advice that you're getting is trusted. And that's what it's about. It's having trust in the system. And I believe that through the technology and economic justice, I believe that it would be accessible to all. Healthcare would be better healthcare, better legal services, better education. And in relation to legal services, again, now there will be no fear for clients coming to me for their immigration matter. They won't have to go away and think, okay, let me try to do it on their own, because they would be able to afford the costs. I had to turn a client away in a week because he couldn't afford my legal fees. But I did give him some advice to say, well, you can do it on your own. And I am sort of guiding him through the steps, but he's doing application himself, where if now he had access to the economic token justice, he could say, okay, his fees would be covered. So that's what it would be.
Amazing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So
yeah, so in short, it's just more affordable. There'll be more equality, there'll be better equity, and it'll be available for every human being on the planet.
yeah, it would mean it's gonna mean a whole lot of things, because not a single one of us does not need access to justice, or say even legal help. But people are afraid for asking for legal help because it is expensive. So it looks like law is made for people who can afford, rich people. And then, of course, if you try to cut corners, get cheap legal help, it's like going to a mechanic who is not well trained, and then you end up with a vehicle that is broken. Also, the same thing with medicine, that if you go to a charlatan doctor out there, you can end up destroying your body and thinking that you're getting clinical help for free or for a cheaper price. See?
Yeah.
So if we make this thing now accessible, that people can actually gain legal help by just participating in the legal system. You see, that is like self-feeding. It's intrinsic in itself. Yeah, then it becomes very powerful.
It does indeed.
Now, what you're asking, that what role would you play now in making this thing happen? You say, as an individual, is Mr. Kimathi. What role would you play in making sure, seeing this thing through, to make sure it works?
What role would I play?
Yeah, what would be your role in the whole system to become the bridge, or something that I'm thinking that already you have developed the theoretical foundation, and you have helped to identify the problem. You studied through your undergraduate and your master's degrees. You studied the problem itself, the problem of slavery, the problems of discrimination, the problem of human rights. So we have a great understanding of the problem. Now, today we are talking about the solution. Now, how do you see yourself? What role will you play in helping people to comprehend this solution? Yeah.
I definitely see my role being that bridge. It's like, for example, I work in immigration. I always say to my clients, I want to be that bridge to help you get from whatever country you are, whether it be Pakistan, India, Jamaica, West, East Africa, wherever you're from. I'd like to be that bridge to help you get you into the UK. Because that's what I see my purpose is. So being someone who believes in creating bridges and not building walls, I want to be someone who helps to design systems where people don't need status or wealth to be seen, heard, or helped. Again, I was still partially helping a client in the week with his application, even though I said, well, I know you can't afford it, you can do it yourself. So I was giving him sort of signposting him on what to say, what to write. But so I want to be that individual who can actually help individuals, whether it's creating tools that translate complex legal language, building platforms that reward civic engagement, helping communities organize their own justice funds. My goal is to shift power back to people. Again, empowering people, enlightening them, giving them knowledge, and I'm thinking, I believe that they say that knowledge is power. So blockchain can then bring forth power, sovereignty, independency. There's nothing better than being independent. The greatest feeling, who wants to be dependent on another? It can be quite heart-wrenching, so I would like to empower the fellow man who's trying to look after his family. It feels wonderful knowing that I've managed to assist someone with their immigration status. Now that man is now legal in the UK. Now he can support his wife and his 3 kids. And when I hear these stories, I feel so overjoyed. So that's what I feel my role would be. Yeah, definitely building that bridge, and
bridge.
being an architect.
It brings me again, of course, this story in Genesis where we had this great man called Moses, and he had a whole number of people, let's say the multitude, that he had to take across the ocean, the sea, the Red Sea. Now, you see, there was no bridge those days. What did he do? Because they were trying to run away. I think they were trying to get out from the old system. By the way, this is exactly the same thing we're talking about. Getting people out of the old land into the new land. It's called the promised land, okay?
Yes.
So you're saying that you would have to be a bridge to move the multitude from the old system to the new system. First of all, from that old thing of, slavery, whatever, looking for reparations, to the new promised land, that is the blockchain. And which recognizes the value of each one of us. That is similar or akin to crossing the Red Sea. And I think there's so much to learn from that, like what is described in those writings, those scriptures. That Moses, I think he had his staff or something like that. Then he dropped it on the Red Sea, and the whole sea parted. So now in your case, you're saying you're going to build a bridge. And when the whole sea parted, then people were able to walk on the dry land on the seabed across to the other side, the promised land. But then even after they crossed over to the other side, they still never arrived because they started fighting with each other. So this thing is very instructive. And so they spend another whole 40 years, symbolic, in the wilderness, getting lost, in the great confusion, until he had to write the law, the new law, on tablets of stone. So that is the story. So working as a bridge, it means that you have we of course for Moses to get people to follow him towards the Red Sea, he has to go talking to them, to recruit them, talking to them, each one of them, explain to them, listen, guys, what you're getting here is not good. We need to go on there to the other side. Okay. That means so bridge is really the second step, but the first step is to talk to the people, and which are these people we're talking about? The consumers, I mean the individuals consumers, but then also the legal fraternity. I think the brothers and sisters in law, not in that's a married thing. But I'm talking about the learned friends,
Yes.
lawyers themselves. They actually need to buy into this idea so we can get as many legal professionals participating in these conversations. And so we are going to invite as many legal professionals. And so the bridge we are talking about is, first of all, assembling all those people, creating ambassadors who are going out to help mobilize the people, telling them, listen, ladies and gentlemen, there is promise in the blockchain. Let us go to the promised land, to where we don't talk about darkness, which is poverty. We talk about light, which is on the blockchain. Blockchain, the technology that recognizes the value of each one of us, recognizes your dignity. And that is in the token itself. So what I'm saying, it's a sort of evangelism that I see you are all also being an evangelist of the token itself, that you're going to be talking about it to the legal fraternity so that we can help build this conversation. But they know that so long as you are there, just like Moses was there, so long as you're there, they're going to follow you and walk across the dry bed, or maybe walk across the bridge to go onto the other side. Yeah?
Oh, definitely. And I'd also like to say as well that through, or like to also trying to explain but to them that participation shouldn't be performative, it should be transformative. So if the more people that show up, learn, share, and stands up for their rights, that should also count. So they should earn something, as a bit like what you have mentioned today as well. So my role would help to build that infrastructure to show that dignity isn't something that you're born into, but something that you can claim through action, voice, and community. So yes, it's taking them from Pharaoh's land into the promised land.
It's like the promised land.
One by one.
I have another question. You said in our previous discussions that justice is not in the system. Justice is a signal. What does that mean? Justice is a signal. Justice is a signal. It's not in the system.
When I say justice isn't a system, it's a signal. I mean that true justice isn't just about rules, courts, or even codes. It's like a message that we send to each other. Your matter, your story counts. You're not alone, kind of thing. Yeah, systems are necessary, but too often they're designed to protect the status quo. We're all aware of the divide and rule structures. We spoke about governments or colonial powers that have been in function since the late 1500s, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the English, so forth and so on, and even in the USA. So they require credentials, money, or access to many people who don't have it. I mean, in a world like that, justice becomes something distant, something other people do get. So what I'm trying to say is here now that justice is a signal. It shows up in everyday it's in a neighbor, helping you to understand your rights. We could build a platform that lets you speak without being silenced. Your voice is heard. Like in my immigration work, I like to be the voice to the voiceless. Again, in a token that says you belong here. You know, a lot of clients who want to come to the UK, yeah, they deserve to be here. They belong. So again, that's my purpose. So participation, showing up, and you're appreciated. And I believe that technology gives us the chance to rewire the signal. That's what I believe.
Yeah, amazing.
And
Justice
yeah, to make
is a
justice,
signal.
yeah, to make justice a bit louder, a bit more clearer, and more inclusive is you know. So yeah.
Amazing. Justice is a signal. Now, for everyone who is here, I want you to understand a very, very, very profound message. Justice is signal. Justice is not in the system. Justice is not in the court of law or in this hallowed house, these brick houses, but justice itself is a signal. This, I think what I'm understanding, Kimathi to say, the signal is in every one of us, that your ability to communicate your values to another person. That is what justice, that equity in communication, that was justice all about. That, and of course, as we've been saying, the web technologies, like the Web 2, it has started this with, you could say, Web 2 dynamic web, that every one of us being able to post things on Facebook, sharing our thoughts on YouTube, sharing on LinkedIn, but that was just one step towards appreciating the signal. Yeah, for everyone. That's why even why we have WhatsApp, even this kind of space we have here today, that we can communicate from so many different locations. That is signal. And that is what is justice. Isn't that amazing? So deep. I think today we have been having the most profound conversations of all time. So justice is signal. Justice is not in the system. So justice is not going to be, say, in the World Bank or the IMF or in the colonial systems or colonial. It's not in the system or in the court of what's called court of justice. Justice is signal. So what we are saying is that we are now talking about using the economic justice token to capture the value of that signal. Okay, because signal, like when you talk about radio signal, you need a device to capture the radio frequency. Or even if it's a voice signal for telephone, you need your handheld set. It's technology. Really, what, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to see here, all this is technology. Whether it's a signal that we capture by communicating telephone communication, whether it's a signal that we capture by radio frequency communication, or it's a signal of light. But what the blockchain has done is use the most profound technology of all technologies, which is called technology of light. In capturing the signal and then loading it onto light, means that light is ubiquitous. It's everywhere because sun shines on all of us, the poor and the rich at the same time. The sun doesn't rise for certain people and then others stay away from the sun or without sun. The sun is available for all of us. And you can see the sun transmits electromagnetic waves. It's called sunlight. That's sunlight, which is traveling at the speed of 300,000 kilometers per second. That's the light. So what is traveling at that speed? Is that signal coming from one thing out there called the sun, and it's reaching the earth in about 8 seconds or 8 minutes. 300,000 kilometers per second. So when the sun is doing that, giving us all this light, in the light itself is a signal carrying system. It's called photons. Now this is what is in physics. Photons are just particles of light, which Albert Einstein described to us in 1819. Yeah. Or 19. Yeah, in 1919, around there. And he said that light is in particles, and those particles of light are called photon. And what we have figured out is how to load information, communication, the things that we say to one another, even text messages, like you said by WhatsApp. We load that on that photon of light. And what we are saying is not just loading text messages on a photon of light. We are talking about loading the value of what you produce every day. So the blockchain has enabled us to capture that value, and now we call it a token. That's what the token is all about when you come now to the deep science of it. The token is an electronic message that is put on a photon of light and then broadcast to the rest of the world, to everybody. And why this is so serious and profound, that signal itself, when it can be distributed to everybody in the world, that is what justice is all about. So justice is not just a signal, is like the traffic light signal, but you're talking about a signal that is universal, that itself is loaded on a photon of light, which itself is coming from the sun, which is available for all of us. And that's why it's called equity. We are talking about equity today. Equity, because the sun rises for every single one of us in this planet. That means that this economic justice token, which is now you could say the physical, it's not really physical, it's the digital component that you are now able to load on the photon of light and distribute to all of us in this world. And when that happens, we have equal access. Now, the key is for us to figure out how to use it. It's already here. It's already here. It's not going anywhere else. And because this is built on the technology of light, which is the technology that chases darkness. And we see darkness is equivalent to poverty. It does not really exist. Darkness is absence of light. So what you're asking, why don't we use the technology of light to shed light in our pockets? To create wealth. That wealth that we talk about is within our reach, because the blockchain is able to help us represent the value that we produce every day. We just need to figure out how to use it. It's not complicated, ladies and gentlemen. As we said, that as what Kimathi explained to us, say for example, this lady who needs legal help because she's having housing issues with the landlord, she comes to the legal clinic, she receives tokens, and then the law student who is also providing legal help also receives tokens. So those tokens together, they gain value. And then they actually represent the value that is being produced by participating. That's what we're talking about, economy of participation, not economy of exclusion. And so, wow, I would like us to stop there because we've gone quite a bit today. And I want to thank you, Kimathi, so much for unpacking this for us, because it's a very, very heavy-duty topic. Just like Moses was struggling to get those guys out of the old land to the new promised land. It's a message that's very, very difficult. People are afraid, of course, even after he crossed them over to the other side, they were still fighting and complaining, and they were made to wait in the desert, we are told, for 40 years. We don't have 40 years to wait in the desert. But
I was going to ask, is there any other questions before we close?
Yeah, are there any questions? That's good.
From Jose, Jonathan, or Susan? Or any comments I'd like to make on today's discussion?
And this video is going to be available on YouTube. We shall be uploading it maybe tomorrow or later, so that we can distribute it even to other people out there, and they can comment on it.
Okay.
But the next discussion, we're going to say, now if you have those tokens, how do they gain value in the marketplace? And That's a very deep question, and we shall be talking about liquidity tools and liquidity itself. That's much, you're getting deeper and deeper into this. So the first thing is to build the tokens, but then how do the tokens actually become liquid and tradable? That's about liquidity pools and exchanges, decentralized exchanges, and how they work. Yeah. Okay.
Fabulous. So I think we should be closing out if there's no more questions. That's great.
Mhm.
Okay, so would you like to close, Dr. Masharia?
Maybe let me see, Susan. Susan, do you have additional remarks you would like to say?
Not really. Thank you so much, Simon, for that amazing presentation, and thank you, Doc, for the discussion. It was a very enlightening session, and I appreciate this. Justice token. Way to go.
Yeah, and so what we'd like to say is announcements that all this is coming through the Actuate Academy as a part of the training program, because we want to make sure that people people know about the blockchain itself and the power that it has to change our lives. And we can actually move the needle and even change the focus from talking about poverty all the time to talking about how we create wealth for ourselves. Yeah, because it is possible to do that. And so we are running this Actuate Africa Challenge. Actuate Africa Challenge, because Africa is deeply affected by all this narrative about poverty and of course colonization and slavery and all that. And what we believe that Africa's development shall not be imported anymore. Enough of that, because all the time we are being told about how Africa has to import its own development from, say, Europe, United States, whatever, even from the Far East countries like China. But with these new technologies, and we also want to make sure, emphasize to all our Africans that Africa economy shall be actuated. And the word actuation refers to that Genesis movement, where we talk about shift of consciousness. That is what actuation is all about. I hear some things. Are they questions? I don't know. What are those notifications I'm getting?
Oh, sorry, no, that's my my laptop making noise. My apologies.
Okay. Yeah, because I usually get a ding, but I can't tell what's going on. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Let us close there. Then we're going to, well, the next discussion will be about decentralized exchanges, how they work, so that you can know if you have tokens, say like actual token, how do they become liquid? And that is called liquidity pool. And that happens in decentralized exchanges such as Uniswap or PancakeSwap or other swap centers. There are quite a number of them. There's UbiSwap and QuickSwap and a lot of them. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the weekend. Take care, everyone.
Well, good one, yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye. What's this? What's this?